Today we're going to talk about credit. What is credit and why it's so important?
So today we're going to review a few different topics related to credit. First, what is credit and why do we need it? Understanding your credit score and your credit report, how to start building your credit, and some different products you can use to help start building your credit. Great. So let's get into the topic that we're all here for today. What is credit and why is it important to us? So credit is a way to tell lenders or people that you are looking to borrow money from whether you're a risky person to loan money to. Your credit shows your history of borrowing money and paying it back. So even if you're not looking to borrow money or to borrow money in the near future, credit is really important for some of those future financial goals you might have for yourself, like purchasing a car or getting a home. Credit is something that people will look at in the future, and it's important to start thinking about it so that you can work on it over time. So the reason why we have credit is because when a bank or a lender, if you go to them for anything like a credit card or a loan, you're a stranger to them. They don't know you. They don't know if you're trustworthy. They don't know what your previous experience is with money. And so credit is a way to tell them or show them your experience with money and to show them, if you're somebody they would like to loan money to. So in short, credit really is looking at trust. Can they trust you with money? Can they trust you to manage the money they are loaning to you? Or how good have you been with paying things back on time to other lenders? So, all of this really helps you understand a little bit about why it's important. And so who might want to know about your credit? So the first is, like we've mentioned, lenders or people you'd be responsible for paying money back to would usually will ask about your credit. And we'll talk about some ways that they can look at how you've been doing in managing your money. Other examples are, credit card companies, loan companies. When you want to purchase a car, they might look at your credit. When you're looking for a mortgage to purchase a home, they will check your credit. And also in many cases, when you're going to rent an apartment, they'll take a look at your credit to see how responsible you've been in managing your money in the past. Okay, so talking about good credit. When we think about good credit, it ends up meaning someone who can be trusted with money, who has a history of paying their bills back on time, and paying their loans back on time. So when you have good credit, usually you'll be able to you'll have more options. And when you're looking to borrow money, you'll usually get lower interest rates. You might have a higher credit limit, meaning a higher maximum amount that they're willing to give to you. You might have more housing options. When you go to different landlords, if you have good credit, it's not going to be as much of a barrier for you to get an apartment or a home. And then, like we said, it'll help you if you need to borrow money to make some of those larger purchases that you'd like to make in your future. Now, when we think about bad credit or low credit, it means that you might not be someone that's as trusted with money, right? You don't have a history of paying money back on time. And so lenders might be more hesitant to approve you for when you ask for funds. So when you have bad or lower credit, it's going to be harder to get loans, right? You'll likely have higher interest rates or higher percentage you're paying on top of what you asked for. You might not be able to access as much money. It could be a barrier to you when you are applying for apartments where a lower credit score, they might be less likely to approve you. And then, like we said, making those larger purchases might be more difficult. If they see that you have low credit, they might not approve you for that money you're asking to borrow. Okay, so when you first arrive to the country, you likely don't have any credit or no credit. So that's not bad. It actually means you're starting off with a clean slate. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can go from no credit and start establishing a credit history in the US. What no credit might mean though is that you're not going to be able to necessarily ask for a lot of money. They might still give you high interest rates and lower credit limits until you can show and build a better score, a better, what we'll talk about soon, a better credit history, and show that they can trust you in paying back money on time. And just to show a little bit more about that is that look at, in this chart is a good example. Somebody with really good credit or excellent credit is going to probably pay less money over time on interest. So as you can see here, someone with excellent credit would get a lower interest rate and is paying less in interest payments than somebody with bad credit. So that's why it's really important to start thinking about it as you might start thinking about making some of these purchases or borrowing money in the future. So now you might be asking yourself, how do they know what my credit looks like? There are two main resources that we look at. We look at credit score and your credit report. So your credit score is a number that they give to you that basically says how good you are at paying those bills back on time and how trusted you are with money. Your score is usually from 300 to 850, 850 being perfect or excellent, and 300 being the lowest point. Your score is like a grade, like a snapshot of how well you are doing in managing that money. And just to note, you don't need to have a perfect score. You don't need an 850 in order to get the best interest rates and more options. Really, it's good to set a goal, an achievable goal for yourself, and anywhere in that high good range and excellent range, it will give you a lot more options. So your credit score is calculated by these three credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. These three agencies, anytime you are borrowing money like from a credit card company or a loan, they report this information to the credit bureaus, and they calculate your score. When they're calculating your score, they look at 5 main factors. The number one, and probably the most important for everyone to focus on, is payment history. So 35% of your score comes from that payment history, which is what your history of paying things back on time, how much money you've taken out and paying back when you said you would pay it back. Then they look at the amounts owed. So how much money are you borrowing, right? And is it a manageable amount? So they don't want to see you taking out $100,000 if that's not something that you can pay back on time, and if that is going to be unmanageable for you. They also don't want to see you taking out $1 a month. They want to see you taking out a good amount that you can manage with your budget and being able to pay that back on time. So when they look at your payment history, your utility bills won't usually get reported to the credit bureaus. So what will be important though is if you don't pay your bill on time, they could send you to collections, which is a company that basically buys the debt that you owe and will bother you to get that money back. So paying your electricity bill on time is important for not going to collections, but it won't necessarily boost up your score. So the other factors that they'll look at when calculating your score are length of credit history. how long you've had credit. So starting out early is always good because they want to see that you can manage it over time. They'll also look at new credit, right? So that's not as important when you're first starting, but over time, if they see, oh, this person hasn't opened a new credit line in a few years, they want to see that you can manage some new credit lines. And then last, credit mix, similarly, is like they want to see that you can manage different types of credit. So not just credit cards. They might want to see that you have a small loan and that you can manage different types of credit. So those three factors are, they're not as important, I would say, as payment history and amounts owed. But over time, that might be what makes a difference between you going from good to excellent credit. Okay, so here's a way to help you remember how they calculate your credit score. We got our acronym PLANT: payment history, length of history, amounts owed, new credit, and types of credit. And so we have our little plant, and we're going to be growing our credit over time using these 5 things. So now we're going to talk about a credit report. So your score is like your grade. It gives you a number, gives a quick look at how well you've been managing your money, while your report is your entire, like your report card. It lists everything and all of your history of paying back money in the United States. So your credit report, it's usually a few pages long. Or if you don't have credit, it's 1 page long, but it lists everything about you. It'll list your personal information, your social security number, your addresses that you've lived at. It'll have a section about public records, which are any legal information that affects your credit. So if you had a court case and you owe money, that'll be listed on there. And it'll also list collections, like we mentioned earlier. So if you don't pay certain bills on time, after a while, they're going to sell off your debt to another company who is going to try to collect that money from you. So collections are something you want to try to avoid because they stay on your credit for 7 years. Even if you pay it off, it's still going to show on your credit as you did have a collection account. So then you have your credit accounts. So this is every time you've anything you have out where you're borrowing money. So credit cards, any store cards, loans, all of that will be listed under credit account. And it'll also show how much money you have to pay, how much is left, and if you've paid late at any point. So it'll list all of that information. The last section that you'll see on your report are people that have requested your credit report. These are also called inquiries. So lenders and landlords will oftentimes request to see your full credit report when you're asking for either money or for asking to move into a new apartment. This is kind of like a financial background check to see how you've been at managing your money. So every time a lender or a landlord requests your credit report, that's called a hard inquiry. And it can reduce your credit score. So what you don't want to have 10 people requesting your credit report at the same time. So what I always tell people is if you're going to apply for a credit card or a loan, do research and find one that you think is likely to approve you, and then apply to one and see what they say. Don't apply to 10 different credit cards because it will all show on your credit report and it'll make your score go down. They can also only access your credit report with your written consent. So they have to ask you and you have to sign saying it's okay for them to check. You also have the right to check your credit report. And so every year, everybody gets one free credit report from each of the 3 bureaus. So technically, you get 3 free credit reports a year. If you check this way, it's called a soft inquiry. IRC similarly, or your Safe Financial Coach, when they do a credit report pull for you, it's a soft inquiry and doesn't have an effect on your credit score. So to check your credit score, we recommend to check it monthly just to see how it's doing. Don't check every day. It's not going to change every day. So it'll probably change only a few points over time. So you can check on CreditWise, which is a free website that you can check, run by Capital One. You can check usually your bank, if it has online banking, oftentimes they have a credit app that you can use to check. And then your score is on your report. So if you work with IRC or a financial coach with SAFE, we can pull your report and let you know what your score is and review that with you. For your credit report, we recommend checking 3 times a year because you get 3 free ones. So it's good to just look at it, make sure everything looks good. Make sure that there's nothing on there that looks funny. Sometimes it happens where either, there's an error and something's listed on there that shouldn't be. You can fix that. So you can get it at annualcreditreport.com. And I recommend every 4 months you request one. So maybe you request from TransUnion this month. 4 months from now, you'll request your Equifax one. And 4 months later, you might request the Experian because you get 1 free one from each. IRC can also, or your Safe Financial Coach, if you work with one of the coaches, they can pull your credit report for you and review with you. Just to say, if you're just starting out in the US and you're just getting a credit card or something, likely you won't have a score for a few months. It's going to take a little bit of time for that score to get up there. But you'll see soon enough that it'll, usually if you're doing a good job, when you have no credit, it's easier to build it up than it is to fix bad credit. So it's definitely easier to start from no credit and build it up and keep it high by having good financial behaviors than it is for doing something bad and trying to fix your credit. So you guys are in a good spot, honestly, to start building your credit history. So now you might be thinking, okay, I get credit score, I get my credit report. How do I build it? What do I have to do to get a score and to have a credit history? So as we mentioned, the most important thing is paying bills on time. So although your utility or rent might not boost up your credit, if you don't pay it on time, it could end up in collections or end up on your credit report and affecting it. You also want to make sure you're paying credit cards on time, loans. So you only want to take out money that you can pay back. You don't want to buy a $3,000 TV that you can't end up paying back. You want to make something manageable for yourself. To have credit and a credit history, you're going to have to use it. So there are some products, there are some loans and credit cards for people to use that are low risk that we'll talk about in a bit that you can start off with to start building credit. And lastly, just keep track of it, right? Manage it. Look at your credit score, keep track of your credit report, and just making sure if anything doesn't look right, you're taking care of it as soon as possible. So the first way is to take out a loan. So a loan, as many of you probably know, is an amount of money that's given to someone for a period of time with a promise that you're going to pay it back with interest. So oftentimes you'll have loans for a car, a home. You might have education loans for school. And the idea is that you're paying them back within the set term of the loan. So for loans, there's a few different there's a few different factors that come into play. The principal is the amount that you are requesting, the amount that you need to pay for whatever you're paying for. So if you're buying a $5,000 car, which is very cheap, but you might say, okay, I need $5,000. Then for a loan, they're going to look at interest, so an extra amount that they're charging you for borrowing the money. And then some loans also, instead of interest, have APR, which is both interest and other fees lumped into one. So interest and APR, you'll usually see one or the other on a loan application, but just know that when they say APR, they usually have some other fees in there. So the total cost of your loan is that principal plus the interest or APR. So you're not going to just be paying for that amount that you need, you're going to be paying a little extra. So let's look at an example. I'm going to go just click all of it so you see it. Okay, so Fatima says she needs a car and she wants to buy this car for $10,000. The loan is for 3 years and the APR is 10%. So Fatima's principal, the amount she needs to buy her car, is $10,000. Then her interest every year, or APR every year, is 10%. So she's paying $1,000 every year on this loan she's taking out. So over the 3 years, she'll be spending $3,000 on interest, meaning the total loan package is $13,000. So IRC offers a loan product to help you build your credit. It's called our credit building loan. Well, not IRC, CEO, the loan organization IRC works with. And they have a credit building loan that's $100. You pay it over 6 months and there's no interest and no fees. The whole idea is to help you have some credit history, so and show people that you're able to pay back a loan on time. And then after you do the $100 loan, you can go for a $300 loan and a $1,000 loan. As you see, they're longer to pay back and the monthly payments a little bit more. But the whole idea is that with these, by the end of usually even the first loan, you end up with a 647 credit score. So you're starting to build, you're showing lenders that you're good at managing your money. So to apply for this loan, you'll need to attend a credit class, which you guys did today. So congrats, you got that first requirement. And you'll have to meet with a financial coach. So that's just so that you guys can complete the application together. And then CEO will decide if they approve you for the loan. Most people get approved for the credit building loan because it's so low. They usually approve most applications very quickly. So we have a great question in the chat about what if I want to pay this loan off in 3 months instead of 6? So the idea is that many of us could probably pay the loan off in full in 1 month, right? But the idea is to check to show that length of credit history, to show that you can make payments over the course of 6 months. So to actually look better, you'll probably get a higher credit score if you pay it off slowly over 6 months than you would if you paid it all off in 1 month or 3 months. So CEO also offers other types of loan products. They offer personal loans, immigration, education and training, auto purchase loans. So all of these loans have different requirements. They're all on our website. If you arrived after July 31st, we're offering many of these loans at 0 interest. Because we know, all of the new families that have arrived, just to give some extra help there. But just know that for most of the loans that are not credit building, they're going to ask to see some proof of income, your bank statements, to see that you're managing money well. And then you'll still have to meet with a coach to talk about how it fits with your personal goals. So the next way to build your credit is through credit cards, right? And most of us are familiar. It's a card that you're making purchases with borrowed money. So you have to pay the money back over time with interest. So a good trick to know is that if you don't if you can't have interest, whether for religious or cultural reasons, um, if you pay your full credit card balance off on time, there's no interest. So I always tell people only use your credit card for bills that you know that you can pay back and know that you can pay back on time, and then you won't have any interest. So a few things about credit card. Similar to loans, they have an annual percentage rate. So that's a percentage that they're going to charge you on top of what you're borrowing if you're not paying the full amount, if you're not paying the full balance by the due date. There's a credit limit. So as they start trusting you over time, the credit card company is going to tell you how much you can spend a maximum on your credit card. So if you're doing a good job, they're going to raise that. The trick is you don't want to spend all of it, because sometimes they can raise your credit limit to pretty high, like $5,000. But if you can't pay that, you don't have to spend all of that. It's just showing that they trust you to borrow more money. Some cards also have an annual fee where they charge you a flat amount for having the card. Usually these are cards that have extra rewards or like bonus that you get for using them. But there are lots of cards that have zero annual fee. The minimum payment is the lowest amount you can pay every month to avoid any penalty, right? So let's say you had you spent $500 on your card. They might say, okay, every month you have to pay at least $25 to avoid an extra fee for paying late. So you always want to make sure you're making that minimum payment, and you can even set up automatic bill pay so that no matter what, it'll automatically cover that minimum payment every month. So a great card to start with that we usually recommend for people with no credit or low credit are secure credit cards. So with a secure credit card, you're actually putting down a deposit. You're paying a little bit money up front, which is like an insurance to help the company or the bank trust you. So when you close out the card, and maybe you close out the card because you've done a great job and you want a non-secure credit card, a normal credit card, they'll give you that money back. So usually for these cards, they'll give you a lower credit limit. So for example, like a Capital One secure card, you might put down $49 and they will only let you spend up to 200, right? The APR is also going to be higher because they don't know you. They don't know if they can trust you with money yet. So as you start using it more, they will start raising your credit limit. And usually after about 6 months, I see it as fast as 6 months. If you do a good job, they might offer you a unsecured credit card. So just to show you quickly an example of how your credit card might work. So let's say you have a $25 minimum payment, 20% APR interest, and $300 limit, right? The first month, you spend $100. You pay the minimum. And so at the end of the month, you owe $75, and then they tack on that interest of $15. So next month, you're owing $90. And so that cycle keeps going. But then if you look at month 4, you missed your payment. You forgot to pay the minimum. So in addition to that interest, they're charging you an extra late fee of $35. So that's why it's really important to either set up like automatic bill pay, or to set something in your phone to remind you of when your bill is due so that you don't miss it and that you're paying it on time. So just to summarize some of the things we learned today, right? So first, credit is important to show lenders that you can be trusted with money. And it's important so that in the future, when you start thinking about some of those long-term goals, that you start building your credit so that you don't have any barriers for you accessing those funds or accessing an apartment or a home when you want to. To build your credit, right, you're going to want to pay those bills on time. You're going to think about some of these credit building products that we talked about. And meet with a financial coach. They can talk to you about your specific situation and come up with a plan with you to see how you can build your credit and come up with a goal for where you want your credit to be in the next few months to a year.